This episode is brought to you by the Marine Corps Association and Foundation. The Marine Corps Association is committed to our mission of providing resources for professional military education and esprit de corps. If you like what we're doing, consider donating. There are multiple ways to give, such as our year-end giving. Join our year-end matching gift challenge by donating to the Marine Corps Association by December 31st. Your tax-deductible donation will be tripled, going 3 times as far to fund professional development programs for Marines. Every gift strengthens our Corps. Give today at mca-marines.org/donate-to-MCAF and help shape tomorrow's Marine leaders.
Hey Scuttlebutt listeners, this is episode 173. This week, as a continuation of our 20th anniversary of Fallujah II Operation Phantom Fury programming, we welcome the founder and CEO of Victura back to the show. Peter was on our show a year ago to talk about his game 6 Days in Fallujah. You can check that out in episode 114. Peter is on today to talk about the feedback he's gotten from the early access release of his game back in June and the newest release of the Command and Control update, which came out on November 7th to coincide with the anniversary date of the Second Battle of Fallujah. It was great to get the perspective of someone who is not a Marine, but is just as passionate about honoring those who served. As we focus on wargaming as a way of getting in your reps and sets, 6 Days in Fallujah goes well beyond the typical run-and-gun paradigm of first-person shooters and uses the experiences and stories of actual veterans of Fallujah to bring a real-world experience to its players. Here is episode 173.
Howdy, Scuttlebutt listeners. My name is William, and I'm here again with Vic.
Hey.
And we have a reoccurring guest now, Peter Tamte from the development team of 6 Days in Fallujah. He came on about a year or so ago to talk about the initial early access, and he's here today to talk about a big release that they have going on. So, Peter, how are you doing?
Really well. Thank you for asking. It's good to see you guys again.
All right, well, let's just dive into it. What's in this new update that's coming out for 6 Days in Fallujah?
Well, the number one most requested feature. So we released the first 10% of the game into early access back in June of 23, and it became the world's number one best-selling PC game, by the way, which is great globally. Yeah, global. And we stayed in the top 10 in the U.S. for like a week, more than a week and a half or something like that. So which is, really, really strong. A lot of interest in the game. That was just the first 10% of the game. We released a few more missions in December of 23. But all throughout the whole time, people have been asking for one thing above all else. So you'll recall probably from our last conversation that we were really fixed on this idea that if you can clear a mission solo, it's fake. And right, because Marines,
the Call of Duty paradigm, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly right.
Run and gun.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And it's not just that there's got to be other guys around you. You got to be moving together as a unit. You got to be communicating with each other. You got to be using actual tactics. These things, if you're not doing these things, you're not going to be successful. You're not going to survive. And in fact, in the Battle of Fallujah, I know of only 2 cases where somebody was able to clear a house by himself. One of those guys was awarded a Medal of Honor. The other one was awarded a Navy Cross. So it's almost impossible to do. And so we built 6 Days in Fallujah the same way, where you must play with you must have a 4-man team, and maybe you can do it with 3-man. There have been content creators online on YouTube and Twitch that have been trying to do it solo. It's very, very, very hard. Sometimes somebody will be successful, but it's like 1 in 15, 1 in 20. It's very, very difficult. Now that is a problem for people who don't actually want to play with other humans, which is a lot of people actually either prefer to go online first by themselves so they don't embarrass themselves in front of other people, or because they just prefer to play games solo on their own schedules. People, for example, that are, having babies like William, sometimes their schedule now gets a little bit rearranged and they just can't get online at the same time as their buddies. They want to go online when they can go online, which, with a young child is about 3 a.m. So for people who want to play the game solo, we're bringing them the number one feature people have requested since the beginning, since we announced the game, which is the ability to command an AI fire team. So when you play 6 days solo, you will have 3 other members of your team. They are all control. They're all AI, and you issue them commands. So you play the role of the team leader, and then when you issue commands, those commands go to your saw gunner and the assistant gunner, and then the rifleman, who's the fourth man on the team, follows and supports you as the team lead. So this allows you then to do all sorts of realistic, authentic tactics with your four people. So one of the Marines that we worked with, he says this. I think it's a really great line. He's like, the corporal actually has all the assets of a general, just at a smaller level, right? He's got his own indirect fire weapon with the M203. He's got his own suppression weapon with the M249. And he's also got the ability to snipe with because both he and the rifleman will have scopes on their M16s. So in 6 days now, starting November 7, players will be able to command that fire team so that you can do basic military tactics. So, for example, if you're faced with a situation where you've got enemies that are behind cover, you don't want to assault through open terrain to get to them. Instead, you might use a tactic, fire maneuver, right? Where you're going to, these are things, this is just cracks me up, right? Fire maneuver, this is taught in very early in somebody's military career. They learn about fire maneuver. You can't do that in any other video game right now.
Yeah.
It's the most basic of all military tactics. It's a foundation of military tactics, fire and maneuver. You can't do it in a military shooter. It's kind of crazy. And you haven't been able to do it in any video game for 15 years, unless, of course, you happen to be playing with a bunch of people who are trained in fire maneuver, right, and you're playing all human game. But you're playing with AI, and you can't do it. You haven't been able to do it for 15 years since Brothers in Arms. So in 6 days, when you get in that situation now, you just you'll point at the target, you'll order your saw gunner and assistant gunner to suppress that target. That fixes them in place. It gets them to cower behind cover. That allows you then to maneuver. You might flank, you might assault, however you want to do, and eliminate that threat through a basic military tactic. So that's one of the tactics, and there's many, many more I'm happy to talk about.
That's awesome.
Sorry, Vic. What was some of the issues you had in developing AI to work alongside the player? Because you brought up Brothers in Arms. I remember playing that. I still have Hell's Highway on my Xbox somewhere.
Awesome, awesome.
There's some instances where like the AI is actually pretty decent in those series, but like going through and, hey, don't stand in that doorway, Mr. AI, like you're gonna get shot at, like things like that. How did you make it so that the AI working with you was able to work in a dynamic environment so they didn't do stupid stuff?
Boy, you nailed the question right there. It's two parts of that question. Just simply getting them to operate, AI to operate proficiently in a static environment is a challenge that is so difficult that only one other game has tried to do that. One other major game has tried to do that in the last 15 years. That's Ready or Not. And they did that with a police game as opposed to with a military game with military tactics. And then you've got the second part of that challenge, which is that at 6 days in Fallujah, the environment is dynamic. We generate all the buildings procedurally. So now we've got an AI problem, and we've got an AI that's got to operate in an environment where you can't use any of the cheats that you use in static environments to get AI to be smart. So I have to tell you that getting that AI to operate proficiently in a procedurally generated environment is the largest technical challenge I have seen in my 30 years in the video game industry. It is a massive technical problem, and it is the reason why it's taken us so long to do. So now we've gotten to the point where it's pretty good. I'm not going to say that it's perfect because I haven't yet played a game with any kind of AI in which the AI is perfect. Period. Right. So it's a really hard problem to solve, but we have gotten it to the point now where they're pretty proficient. They'll do some stupid stuff sometimes, but most of the time, some smart stuff for you. The answer to your question of what did we do in order to get them to not be stupid, like stand in the doorway in the wrong places, things. The answer to that actually goes into why that problem is so hard. reason, so there's a basic systemic problem with trying to get AI to be smart and running a game at 60 frames per second, right? So if we had unlimited time, we could make an awful lot of calculations and we could make those guys very, very smart. But we have to calculate everything, all the physics, all the graphics, all the AI for the enemies and the friendlies every 16 milliseconds. Right. So that is a really, really big, that's a really, really big challenge. You get that challenge solved, and then you have your next set of problems. And the next set of problems is the edge cases. So what happens when the rifleman goes first? What happens when there's a couch inside of the doorway? And what happens when the door opens towards you or instead of away from you? What happens when there's an insurgent over here versus over there? You just go through this long list of edge cases, and that's why you end up with a situation where it takes a long time to try to get that AI to be proficient in a static environment, much less in a procedural environment.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine the challenges. Knowing nothing about coding or sort of the development of AI, other than when I want to either hit a Google search or Chat GPT or something like that. But the idea that even for humans, with the constant repetition and the constant training to develop those SOPs.
Oh, true. Yeah.
And then to then overlay it with all of the things that you're going to experience that you can't simulate in a training environment, like the fear of death, smells, obscuration, fatigue. No matter how much I can, PT these guys till they're pooping buttermilk. There's just no way I'm going to be able to get that same real world combat stuff. I can just get them as ready as I can. Anyway, really long way of saying I can only imagine the challenges of trying to bake that into AI that is kind of pulling all of this stuff from a clean slate that didn't have 18 months of workups to then incorporate into its decision making.
For sure. And actually, I'll tell you what the shortcut is. Actually, I think you actually kind of dipped into the shortcut for us in trying to do that is somebody else that already solved a lot of the problems for what they're supposed to do, right? Because there's a lot of doctrine, a lot of TTP about the way you're supposed to, what you're supposed to do in this situation versus that situation. So our team had a starting point, which was the actual TTP, as opposed to trying to figure out, well, what are they really supposed to do? It's a matter of saying, well, this is what they're supposed to do. Now, how do we actually make them do that?
Yeah, I got to imagine, too, for the other first-person shooter sort of paradigm, that's an aspect that you're not really quite so worried about, because the idea is to sort of be the one-man army, right? Like, you're going to solve the entire campaign on your own. So it doesn't really matter TTPs. You're already out the door, right?
Right, exactly right. That the team that's making the game didn't know the TTP to start with. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Whereas our approach is the exact opposite of that, right? Yeah. Which is to say, let's look at the TTP and let's look at the specific applications of the TTP in this specific battle to try to understand this is the right way to do it.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
So, what assets do your AI partners bring to you? I know you can tell them to fire, you can maneuver them. What else can they do?
So here's the other thing we've done with the game. So you'll recall, if you go back to Brothers in Arms, they had a clever way of ordering your team. So there's basically been two ways to give orders to an AI fire team in the last 20 years. One is with a radial menu. And the other one is the method that they used in Brothers in Arms, where you click and then you drag, and you can drag, if you want your guys to go here, you click and then you drag them over, right? So this is the two different methods. We've come up with a third method, and this third method is critically important because what we found is in 6 Days in Fallujah, unlike other games, a lot of other games, they actually literally slow down or pause combat so that they give you time to make a decision. But as you guys have heard from me, we're all about realism, right? And 6 Days in Fallujah is a very dynamic environment where the insurgents are putting pressure on you constantly. So you do not have, we do not slow down the game. We do not pause the game. So we had to find a way to make it as easy for you to issue orders to your team as it is to fire your weapon. And our answer to that is what we call the go command. There are 4 basic go commands. So the first go command is that if you want to order your team to watch a target, you just point and push the go button. They will then move to your position, hold position there, and watch the target until you tell them to do something else. This allows you then to secure something. So if you wanted to secure, if you're worried about an entrance to a, if you're on a street, for example, and you're worried about somebody coming from the right, but you need to move to the left, or you're inside a room and you're worried about a particular doorway, team will automatically go provide 360 security. But if you know for sure that there's a bigger risk on a particular doorway, you might want to organize all your assets to protect that doorway. So you can do something like that with the watch command. You might also use them to channel enemies into kill zones, right? Because you can set up your guys in a watch and then push enemies towards that kill zone. So that's the watch command. Second command is suppress. So suppress, you just aim and aim down sights and push the go button. So if you're aiming down sights, when you push the go button, you automatically issue a suppress order. And that will order your saw gunner and assistant gunner to suppress that target. The third command is the move command or advance command. And with that, you push the run key while you push the go button, and that will order your team to go to the location that you're pointing at, and they will automatically take up cover at that location, and they will stay there until you either reach their location, so you could use this for bounding, for example, or until you order them to do something else. And then the fourth command, form up. That will cause the team then to form up on you, and they will then provide 360 security around the team as you move as a unit. And then in addition to that, there's a variety of context-sensitive commands. So if you aim at a doorway and push the move command, the team will stack on that doorway, get themselves into position to flood firepower into the building. Then once they're stacked, automatically, when you're pointing at that doorway, it'll give you options for how you want to breach that doorway. You might order your team to crack open the doorway so you can toss in a frag, or you might order the team just to kick and flood. You get those options when you're breaching.
That's awesome.
Those are the basics. Mm-hmm.
What, and I don't want to, I guess, being sort of, again, using my own experience, when it comes to interacting with the AI, we understand like one of the big things is even more sort of nuanced in an urban environment is dispersion, because obviously there's all the terrain is cannibalizing, and you're talking about munitions that have large kill zones. Do you ever run into an instance where you could give your team a command and they're just not, like, they're almost bringing themselves into becoming a large, like, does the AI know to interact using dispersion and things of that nature so that you're not like leading yourself into a thing where a single frag grenade can kill the entire team?
So that depends on the environment they're in, but okay. Yes, they will. So 2 things. Number 1 is that your saw gunner, assistant gunner are going to try to stay together as a buddy pair. Okay. So they will be closer together, but you and the rifleman in many cases will be separated from them. So there's a natural dispersion just depending on how the player plays that mission. And then in addition to that, it really depends on where they're at, what they're trying to do. So they figure in a lot of signals from the, where are they getting shot from? Where do they perceive there to be a threat? Where they heard a threat, but maybe it's not shooting at them. That might cause them to bunch up, or it might cause them to expand. Kind of depends on where they're at. When they get into a room, for example, first thing they'll do is they will try to secure the portals to that room. So once they get through the room, I should say after they've cleared the room. So the first thing they do, of course, is they clear the room. And then once the room is clear, they'll then take positions up. So you might see one Marine automatically go to one doorway while another Marine goes to a different doorway, for example.
That's fascinating. That's really cool.
Yeah.
What has been some of the feedback from the early access? I know you'd mentioned some of the more, I guess, business side statistics. But I was thinking more because you had so many advisors and you solicit so much input from not only Marines, but even Iraqi citizens and feedback from, I mean, you really, from our discussion last time, you guys really spanned the gamut on all of the various experiences from Fallujah. What has been some of the feedback from service members, especially from those who were there?
The feedback has been very positive, especially for those who wanted a much more realistic exploration of combat, period, urban combat more specifically in this battle, especially. Also, a lot of positive feedback in terms of just telling the stories as they are. Gotten a lot of positive feedback for that. It's been interesting because actually our team got a real kick out of this. Right after our launch, for the first few weeks, our team goes online and tries to join others we try to matchmake into games randomly, just to kind of get to see how people are experiencing the game up close. And
Right.
There were an awful lot of situations where somebody would go, one of the players would say, "Hey," to somebody else, "Hey, notice how you move, man. Yeah, the way you handle that doorway, the way you move. Did you serve?" And then, "Oh yeah, I was in Ramadi at this time." Another guy, "Oh, I was in Ramadi at that time." "Where were you?" And all of a sudden it's like, so the quantity, I don't know what percent, we never had a way of measuring what percent of the people playing the game were veterans, but there was a very high percent for during that early access launch, a very, very high percent. So that to me was one of the most, heartwarming. And then in a lot of our forums, we get a lot of comments, and then we get also a lot of comments directly through our website from veterans who've played. So what I'd say is, 80-90% of the feedback has been very positive. There have been some people who've played and said, "You know what, I respect what you're doing, but it's too much for me, and I don't want to do it." And I wasn't sure. I gave it a shot, but it just brought back too much. So I'm not going to play. But thank you for making the game. We have had a smaller percent, a very, very small percent, to be honest with you, 5%, something like that, very, very small percent, say, I don't think you should make this game. But that's a very, very small percent. The vast, vast, vast majority of Marines, soldiers have been very favorable towards the way we've been trying to handle this.
Yeah. Just for our listeners who maybe didn't tune in to the first episode, just to give we're going to sort of Tarantino this part, but so the early release of 6 Days in Fallujah is going to cover Vigilant Resolve, correct? So that's the April campaign in response to the 4 contractors being hung from what they were calling the Brooklyn Bridge, correct?
Yes, that's right. So yes. So I should mention, right. So when we released into early access in June of 2023, we included just 4 co-op missions. So the only way to play the game was co-op with other humans, and there were 4 missions. That was it. They were procedural missions, so it changed each time you played, but they're 4 missions. Then we released 3 more missions in December of 2023. But there really wasn't an effort to really tell stories. We included some videos to give players context into what had happened in the city, but we really didn't go into the details. This release on November 7, this release, November 7, which by the way is the 20th anniversary of the battle.
Because that's why I was bringing it up. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So what we're doing on November in this release is we're going to include our first 2 story missions. And those story missions take players through why the battle happened. So they give the context for why they're in the city. And the second thing it does is it tries to give players the basic tactics that they're going to need to understand in order to be successful in the game. We've got to get them to unlearn the habits that they have learned in playing other military shooters, and get them to understand how you work with a team, give order to team, use tactics to overcome challenges. Those 2 missions are basically, again, they're about giving players that historical context, and they're about giving players the information, the practice that they'll need to be successful throughout the game.
Yeah, and you guys are dubbing that the command and control update. Is that right?
We're calling it the command and control update. Yeah, right, because it's the first time you can actually lead a fire team.
Yeah. And in the story version of it, is there a differentiation between what is Vigilant Resolve and Phantom Fury?
There is.
Okay.
There is. Yeah, that's right. We began the November 7 release begins with the Vigilant Resolve. Events that led up to Vigilant Resolve, as well as the beginning of Vigilant Resolve. That's right.
Yeah. No, that's so cool. That's really cool. And then, so as you're talking this piece outside of the AI, what, I guess, so you had the structure, you do the early release, then what was it like then to kind of incorporate this AI? Was it like more tinkering, or was it almost a complete rebuild that has to then overlay into this already existing structure? Like it seems like it was either way more complex or a lot easier. I guess.
So it ends up being way more complex.
Yeah, that's
yeah. No, and that's a great question. So I mean, one of the benefits of being in early access is we get to watch the way players interact with the game and then adjust the game. So there's actually, in this release on November 7, we actually, both to support the fire team AI as well as to make the insurgents smarter overall, we actually overhauled an awful lot of the insurgent AI. So in reality, before we could really jump into the fire team AI, we had to make some improvements in the insurgents AI. And then we build the fire team AI using a lot of the systems that we had improved.
So cool.
So what other content do you have available coming with this upcoming release on November 7th?
So this release will include the 2 story missions, a training mission, and 3. And then it will also include the brand new co-op mission, which we're going to start calling procedural missions, because you can play any of these missions that have been co-op only. You will now be able to play any of those missions solo with an AI fire team or with any mixture of AI and humans.
No, nice.
Right. So now if you've got 2 friends or 1 friend and the 2 of you just want to get together and play, it's no problem. You can play it and we'll just fill in the empty slots with AI. Then on top of that, we've taken all 7 of the missions that we had already released and we've enhanced them in a variety of ways. So that's, I mentioned earlier that we've improved the insurgent AI. We've also kind of dressed up a bunch of the missions and polished off a couple of things. So hopefully players won't get tagged quite as often from across the map in a dark room. They won't get blown up by mortars unfairly, and a couple of things that people have complained about with the game. We are hoping that those things are better. That we've certainly worked on them, on making them better. And so the missions so that will give you that at that point. What people will experience on November 7 will be a tutorial training mission, and then which is just it's a combat town with shoot houses in them, and then on top of that you'll also get the 2 story missions, and then there's 8 effectively procedural missions that can be played solo, mixtures of AI and humans, or all human.
And what's sort of the timeline that you guys are looking at for a complete rollout? So you've got the early access, and then you've got the command and control coming out on November 7th, the anniversary of the beginning of Phantom Fury. When will we see like the entire?
I hope that we can have the full release out, which would be on both PC and console towards the end of 2025.
Okay, great.
That's our goal. Hard to say. I mean, as it turns out, a lot of this stuff has taken us a lot longer than we thought it would, just a lot harder. So that's our goal right now, though.
It's hell ambitious. I mean, just the idea, yes. And I know last time we talked about it, I think what you guys are doing in your sensitivity, like, because you understand what you're doing. I think that's really important. And it might sound stupid to have to say that out loud, but I think in a lot of ways, there's from my limited gaming, ever since I had my carbon footprints, I've stopped gaming a lot. But I know during the time there was sort of 2 schools of thought. There was either the one that was going to have like just tremendous amount of graphics, and you're just going to be just visually bombarded with this amazing, artistic 3D work. Or you're going to get one that's going to have like amazing gameplay and it's going to be super exciting and super violent or whatever it was going to be. But there was never one that was going to be sensitive to the context in which it was being presented, especially in the way that you guys are doing it. And so I think that endeavor alone is just so admirable.
Thank you.
I think that, but it also, I think explains why these rollouts aren't like, why you're saying like, yeah, we wanted to do it this way, but we weren't going to put out something that was going to suck and be offensive, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I mean, yes, that's right. We care an awful lot about the people whose stories. I mean, these people have trusted us to tell their stories. Want to be, we got to be very, very careful about doing right by them and their stories. And in many ways, we look at what we're doing as informing people who don't understand what war is about a little bit more about the reality of what it's all about, and to do that through the a quote that describes that very well from von Clausewitz when he said, "It is only through experience that we begin to understand where war's difficulties lie." That to me says so much in it, right? That is because we can watch a TV show or a movie and see how somebody else dealt with a problem, but when you're the one who actually has to deal with it yourself, you begin to understand the complexity of that problem in a way that you could not understand by watching somebody else solve the problem. And so, so much of what we're doing is an effort to tell stories that are of remarkable people, and then put you in that same situation so that you understand just how remarkable that individual had to be to make the choices that they made.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we're doing that, helping people understand what is one of the most consequential events of the last 50 years, right? The second battle of Fallujah, and what happened in Fallujah in 2004 collectively set the world down a path, and we have not returned from that path yet. It was, this was the formation of Al-Qaeda in Iraq, led to ISIS. This is the bloodiest battle America had fought since the Vietnam War. And it was a time when we basically had to relearn a lot of the tactics, doctrine of how you fight urban wars. It established relationships between America and Iraq. A lot of people don't understand this. Fallujah was not about Americans versus Iraqis. This was the first major battle where Americans and Iraqis were embedded in each other's units and fought alongside, side by side, with each other 1 year after they had been shooting at each other on a battlefield.
Yeah.
This is remarkable. But this common enemy, terror, brought Americans and Iraqis into relationships that are as close as the Americans had with each other, Iraqis had with each other. These things are just, and that is a model for fought ever after that. What happened in Fallujah is one of the most consequential few months of the last half century. But who's told the story?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Very few. And so much of what we're trying to do is to help people understand the people and the events of that time, because they've been so consequential to the way the world works today.
Man, so well said. That is so well said. And to that point, like, you guys put such an emphasis in here. You actually have no kidding documentary segments that are interspersed throughout. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we actually are starting to call the game a documentary video game, because we blend recreations of actual events with documentary footage that was shot at the event, as well as interviews with people who were at the event or participated in the event or were the subject of the event, right? And so when you play 6 days, missions begin with these documentaries, very quick. They're a couple minutes long, documentary segments that set up the context for what's about to happen and introduce you to the people who are involved in that. Then we transition from that into an in-game scripted cinematic that's more common with what people are familiar with in a game, but can bring you into the particular mission, expose where the enemies are, things like that, bring you into the mission. Then the event recreates right there, and you experience it, and you must complete the same sort of objectives that the Marines or soldiers had in the actual battle. And then we reverse it on the way back out, where we bring you back out through a scripted sequence, and then into another documentary segment, which in many cases will expresses a little bit about how that individual felt about that moment, the events that had happened, the way that might have impacted them or others afterwards. And then we bring you into the next mission.
That's fascinating. Whose brainchild was that? And I mean, what was sort of the genesis behind wanting to do it that way? Was it sort of you guys were working through doing the storytelling, and then we're like, well, why don't we just have someone tell the story? Or how would that?
The inspiration for it was Band of Brothers, actually. It's just, I was a big fan of Band of Brothers when it came out, and it came out, just keep in mind, right around the time, a year or two before we really started to get into this, and this we're talking about the early 2000s, right? So mid 2000s, and so Band of Brothers in many ways was the inspiration for what we did. That it was just remarkable that you can have this person. That a challenge video games have. So just as, here, why do we want to do it this way? I think is a really interesting question, right? So video games are good at some things, they're bad at other things. So video games are good at helping people understand why certain things happen the way they did, because through experience you begin to understand that. But they're not good at communicating facts, and they're not necessarily good at communicating somebody else's emotions. Right. So by bringing these real people on screen in front of you, they can help you understand the facts of the situation, and you can get to understand their motivations and how they were feeling. And that puts you in the right mindset for that moment when you experience that mission for yourself.
Sure. I think too, and what makes me really excited about this idea and this level of integration is that you get into this almost desensitization when you play other, especially first-person shooters.
Sure.
Because it's so sanitary, right? Like, I understand that I'm in sort of this notional context and that my decisions kind of, again, air quotes, have consequences. But at the end of the day, I go in, I shoot a bunch of stuff, I blow up a bunch of stuff, and then I'm on. And then you're on to the next thing. And this really, I think, makes it a much more visceral sort of experience. And that, so I really applaud the idea, and I'm so glad that you guys have done it.
Thank you. Yeah, we really do try to. So there's a higher level of lethality in the game, and a higher level of consequence for choices. So, and we try very intentionally you move at a slower speed. We try to slow you down with tactical problems. There's a lot of things that we're doing. We're claustrophobic inside the houses. There's a lot. We're just approaching the problems from very, very different directions than other video games have classically done.
Yeah, one of the things that we were taught, sort of the axioms that you just say, almost like a mnemonic, was, slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
That's right.
So counterintuitive, but my God, it's literally life-saving.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Pull that down. Yeah.
Absolutely right. Yeah. The right pacing, the right momentum through that house. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's right.
So good. So good.
So I know you're just told us a lot about this current update. What's the end game look like? When you have this finished product complete, you said by hopefully the end of 2025, what will 6 Days in Fallujah look like?
So we'll have probably about another 12 missions or so than we have right now. So this again, we'll have, there'll be 8 procedural missions, 2 story missions, and 1 training mission in this release. But we'd like to, we're more than double the amount of content that's in the game before we get into the full release. That's the main thing. There's some things we're doing. We call them secondary mechanics. There's a few things we're doing to try to increase replayability. So there'll be a few things like that. But the main difference players will see between what we have now and what we have at the end of 2025 is about twice the number of missions.
Incredible.
And then you mentioned going to console. What will the gameplay be like between computer and console?
Should be same. And we're using technology that allows, if players want to, we're probably going to give them the option of participating in crossplay Some players
wow.
like to be able to, they have a friend that's on a PC or vice versa, and they want to be able to play with them. There's other people who are like, I'm a console player and I do not want to play with people who have mouse and keyboard, or vice versa. So we're going to give players some options for that. But one of those options will be, if you got a PC and your friend's got a PlayStation, the two of you can play together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you've put a ton of work into designing this authentic experience. This is, again, probably super early, but with this platform you've developed, do you foresee you being able to apply this to other battles, other conflicts going forward?
Absolutely. That is absolutely our intent. We would like to tell more true stories. That's absolutely what we want to do with it. When you look at so we began development of this iteration of 6 Days in Fallujah at the end of 2017. So we've been working on this for quite a few years now. The bulk of that investment has been in procedural architecture and Fireteam AI and all the graphics and all the technology, all the stuff around that. When you look at a dollars perspective, the vast majority of our investment has gone into building a platform, a technology and content platform on top of which we can continue building many new experiences, all of which are rooted in the fear of the unknown, real tactics, and teamwork.
Well, that's reassuring to hear.
Yeah, that's our goal. And hopefully it'll take us less than 6 or 7 years to do. Or in the case of 6 Days in Fallujah, to actually originally began development at the end of 2005, less than, 14, 15 years, 20 years, whatever we're at now. I don't even know. 20 years. Yes, 20 years since the battle. And we started working on the game about a year after the battle. So there you go.
Yeah. And it's so interesting too, your guys' emphasis on this being almost turning it into a storytelling medium. Do you find any limitations in that? So obviously, it would be harder to necessarily go back to say, you couldn't necessarily do 3 days at Thermopylae or something like that, without pulling more historical context device, obviously firsthand account stuff. Do you see that as being a limitation or just something, just another problem set that you'll have to work around?
It's a different problem set. The core technology, and to be honest with you, I don't know the extent of the answer because it's going to depend a little bit on which of those periods of time and what kind of tactics and weapons were they using, depending on the period that we might choose. That might affect the way units move together, for example, and the tactics that they use, et cetera, which could affect the way the AI works. But we theoretically have built a foundation to be able to do things in a lot of different time periods if we wanted to. My guess is that we're going to probably stay more modern with what we're doing. That's my guess. But we haven't, as you can tell, our minds are consumed with getting 6 Days in Fallujah done right now. So we haven't spent a lot of time thinking about what's happening after that. We got some ideas for sure, but first things first.
Well, I get, we're probably so excited about it. We're like, what's next? I haven't even started the early access stuff yet, but
right. Our team is very, very fixed on getting this one done.
So nice. That's good. You got the right idea.
Cool.
All right. Well, Peter, appreciate you coming on. And again, to our audience, go check out 6 Days in Fallujah. November 7th, you're going to get a lot more content. So go ahead and get it now and then start playing as soon as it comes out. Do you have any final questions, Vic?
No, we'll go ahead and link all the stuff into our show description. I know, did you guys put a new trailer out?
We did, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, you want me to?
Yeah, if you could forward that to me and I'll link to that in the show description, that'd be great.
We'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, well, Peter, thanks again for coming on.
Say again?
Thanks again for coming on.
Oh, you're welcome.
No, this is so cool.
Thank you for having me on.
I love our conversation, so thank you for coming.
I do as well. I really appreciate it a lot, guys. Thank you very much.
The Marine Corps Association is committed to our mission of providing resources for professional military education and esprit de corps. If you like what we're doing, consider donating. There are multiple ways to give, such as our year-end giving. Join our year-end matching gift challenge by donating to the Marine Corps Association by December 31st. Your tax-deductible donation will be tripled, going 3 times as far to fund professional development programs for Marines. Every gift strengthens our Corps. Give today at mca-marines.org/donate-to-MCAF. and help shape tomorrow's Marine leaders. Scuttlebutt is a production of the Marine Corps Association. You have heard the voices or contributions from Major Vic Rubel, USMC retired, Nancy Lichman, William Truding, and our guest. Ty Frazier is the editor, sound engineer, and technical producer. The Marine Corps Association is not an agency of the U.S. government. The opinions expressed in this episode are the personal views of the participants and do not reflect the official position of the United States Marine Corps, the Department of Defense, or the Marine Corps Association.